What's up, everybody? Kate Galliot here. It is time for this week's Facebook Live. This is one of my most favorite times of the week, following any time where I'm drinking coffee and following any time where I'm climbing a wall. So, obviously, you're right up near the top. I want to say hello and welcome. My name is Kate Galliot. Today, we are diving into the first of the 6 pillars of an unbreakable body. This will be a 6-week series that I'll be taking you through, providing education and tips and drills that you can do to help yourself become more unbreakable. You see, this is the foundation of how my Unbreakable Body program was put together because I had been using this with coaching clients in the small suburb outside of Chicago that I was working in for a number of years prior to moving my business online so I could move to Utah. So the 6-pillar framework is something that I saw working again and again and again as I was coaching clients. To give you a little backstory, and then we're going to dive right into strong feet today. The 6-pillar framework is 6 areas of the body that I noticed as I would review my notes with client after client after client, that when these areas were appropriately mobile, appropriately stable, and appropriately strong, the person was incredible in what they could do. And when we really shored up each area to have just enough of each thing that the person needed, they exceeded their wildest dreams with what they could achieve. And as I saw that working more and more, and I thought, well, I really want to help more people, I figured out a way to do it and bring it online. And that's where the Unbreakable Body Foundational Strength and Mobility Program was born. So we are going to spend some time today digging into my all-time favorite pillar, if I had to pick only one, strong feet. Because when you have strong feet, your entire body is set up much better for success, and you are much more prepared for everything life has to throw at you. Not to mention, foot pain sucks, and it's something you can 100% avoid, and I'm going to start to show you how to do that today. All right, we've got a lot to cover today. We are going to bang it out, though, and I think you're going to really enjoy what you learn about your feet. So raise your hand if you're someone who just figured foot pain is a thing you got to handle at some point. I'm sure a few hands might go up, but if you've been around Fit for Real Life for any length of time, you know full well that we are big fans of eliminating foot pain because it doesn't actually have to be a part of your life, and we have ways to do that. I am going to show you some of those ways today. Also, too, as we're going through the Facebook Live today and more people are joining, you are welcome to post your questions in the comments below. I always answer those near the end of the show today, usually right before I do a wonderful joke that leaves everybody in, I don't know, laughing fits or disgusted. I don't really care. We always end with a joke. So if you have questions, drop them below. All right, let's dig in. So things I talked about in the status update that was going into this Facebook Live today was the following. Oh, are we still on? Our power just went out. How crazy is that? Okay, so things that just we're talking about in the status was having bunions, and is that normal? Having flat feet, and is that normal? Having to have like plantar fascia pain and deal with heel spurs and that sort of thing. And then also dealing with having like big toe function issues, like do your toes actually curl under and you have hammer toes on your little toes? Where does your big toe point? All of that sort of thing. Okay, so thanks for letting me know that we're still good. The power's been weird. There's storms rolling through today. It's strange. Anyways, okay, so we're going to be digging into all of that here. So I want to start first. I've got my notes listed right up here as always because I'm getting more professional as we do these. Arches. Okay. As someone who rebuilt her own arches and actually saw a change in the size of her feet, like buying different shoes because of how I rebuilt the strength of my feet, I'm someone who can tell you most assuredly you absolutely can grow better arches in your foot, even if you've always had flat feet. I'm here to tell you flat feet do not run in your family, nor do bunions. What does run in a family is gait pattern. And that is something that you pick up at a very, very young age before you even realize what you're doing. And so if your mother walked a certain way, you will start to walk like that. If your mother's mother walked a certain way, she picked that up from her. You mimic the people around you. And part of mimicking is picking up on their subpar movement patterns if they have them. And so where a mother, a daughter, and then the daughter's daughter all have flat feet, it's not that genetically you are cursed with feet that don't shape the way they are meant to. It's that the muscles aren't very strong and that you haven't been using them in the way that you're supposed to. Does that make sense? Okay, so if you've been doing that for a long time, it stands to reason that the muscle tissue and the fascia and the bones in the foot aren't going to function very well. And so it becomes the norm for you to start developing a bunion or having a big toe pointing inward instead of straight forward, or to have flat and collapsed arches. you actually have the capacity to grow like an arch into your foot. And the reason is these are all like working with muscles. And just like a bicep, we can grow a muscle here. You can also grow muscle in your foot and create better tone and shape in your foot. So how do we do that? Well, first you need to understand that there are 3 arches in your foot, not just the one that you see. So we've got the medial longitudinal arch. You're familiar with that. You've seen it. We've got the lateral longitudinal arch, which if this is a foot, this would be the part where you know the arch. You've looked for an arch there. You've also got a lateral longitudinal arch on the other side. And then one that a lot of people aren't even aware of is the transverse arch, or the metatarsal arch. And so metatarsals, that's your toes, right? And then phalanges and all that good stuff up there. So a lot of people, runners in particular, have developed stress fractures right here on the bottom of the foot. So again, imagine the big toe is up there, but here's the big toe. A lot of people develop stress fractures right here, and they think it's from running too much. And it might be from running too much, but more so, it's about sending the wrong signal a whole bunch of times to say, hey, this arch, which is collapsed, so that means it's going to be much flatter to the ground, this arch should make your foot more like that, so that this bone underneath doesn't hit as hard to the ground every time you take a step, running or not, shoes or not. But when that arch goes away, now this part of your foot is going to be hitting the ground much harder. And the likelihood is if you don't have strong arches, you also probably don't have a strong fatty padding on your foot. And I do want to call out one awesome person today, my dear friend Jessie Stensland of Feet Freaks, Freex. You can find her on Facebook and on the internet. She is doing a ton of great work with barefoot lifestyle and having the foot itself really be honored in the way that it is meant to. She is a great person and resource for that. She has done an article on Fit for Real Life about the foot's fatty padding. I'd encourage you to read that. But so anyways, if you don't have this transverse arch very strong, it's much more likely that the bones underneath the ball joints of your feet, that they're going to be hitting the ground much harder. So you have to start to redevelop not only the arch that you see, the one that you think, oh, I have flat feet, but also the other arches in your foot. So we've pretty much covered the whole bottom of the foot. Why don't we just make the whole foot stronger, right? Right, exactly. Okay, so with these 3 arches, they work together to make like a dome for your foot. And if you know anything about architecture, which I don't, but I've learned a little bit about domes because of feet, because I love feet so much. But if you know anything about architecture, you understand at least the concept that domes are actually quite impressive architectural structures and actually can withstand quite a bit of load coming down on top of them. How cool is that, that you have one of those in your foot? It's like nature knew you were going to be putting a ton of load on your foot, walking and running and jumping, and it said, hey, awesome, let's give you a dome. However, shoes, socks, and poor gait mechanics, and just lack of awareness and understanding that you actually need to do strength work for your feet has created some issues where now the foot is just this sad little guy that smooshes on the ground and doesn't have its little dome of support anymore. Okay, so we need to start rebuilding the dome of your foot. And often, and in the past, this has been quite more frequently than what you'll see now, people have taught you to do towel grabbing exercises or picking things up with your toes. And while those are great, they don't get to the full deep root of the issue, which is this. You need to strengthen the intrinsic muscles of your feet so that you can start to rebuild the arches and the dome of your foot. So one of the most simple ones that you can do is to sit or stand with both feet flat on the floor. And keeping your toes pressed into the floor and your feet facing straight forward, try to press your big toes into the ground as hard as you can. And while you do that, lift all the other toes into the air. It looks like this. I'm going to do it from down here on the floor. Can you see? I'll back up a little bit. Okay. All right, can you see me? Good. Okay, so you're going to press your toes into the floor, and then keeping your big toe pressed into the floor, you're going to lift all the little toes. Okay, and I want you to really keep strong pressure on this big toe. Then you're going to do the reverse. You're going to press all your toes into the floor, keep the little toes on the floor, and lift just the big toe. And as you do this, you're pressing really hard through here and trying to pull really hard through here. These 2 simple drills are a great first start for, oh, you look crooked, sorry. Are a great first start for starting to rebuild the intrinsics of your feet. Getting those to a mastery level where you can do them quite well, 10 reps in a row, really squeezing as hard as you can, is a great start. There is a whole lot more that goes into strengthening the foot and the intrinsics, and you see that when you're in the Unbreakable body and in some coaching with me, but those 2 drills are amazing for getting you started to reconnect to the intrinsic muscles of your foot and help you start rebuilding the arches of your feet. The next thing you can do is actually start spending more time going barefoot so that you can actually start articulating your foot over the earth. And it can feel the changes as you're walking around. Now, you won't have a lot of change if you're indoors like this, but my hope is that you'll take a little journey out into your yard and walk around and feel the sensation of grass and dirt and rocks and little pebbles and big rocks and all these things underneath your foot. And of course, you'll start easily and gently. You won't go walking along a riverbed barefoot right off the gate. But what you can do is go out to the soft grass and actually start doing that, because I'm going to take you back to the floor again. Your foot, okay, so we've got the foot here. So here's where that arch is I was telling you about, the transverse arch or the metatarsal arch. It's supposed to keep this pressed up in, and if not, this hits the ground much harder. But anyways, okay, so your foot is meant to articulate through all of these bones right here. So each phalange comes down to, you know, the ball joint right here, and then you've got metatarsals that come down here, and then the talus and the calcaneus and navicular and a whole bunch of stuff back here. All of these are meant to articulate. And when they can't, because they've gotten stiff from being in socks and shoes and not having the practice, you're less able to move your foot over various surfaces. And you might think, well, Kate, I'm not going to go walking in a riverbed anyways, so well, who cares? Okay, I know, but like, if you can't do it, then the opportunity, when it presents itself, you will not be able to. And I'm telling you, you will be that person who at some point steps funny or steps wrong or steps off a curb weird or just something weird happens, steps on a Lego if you have children at home, and you will get injured because your tissue was not capable of adapting to the situation at hand. And that brings up a really good point. Remember, this is from my Dr. Andrea Spina. He's just got so many gems. It's great. I love it. That's part of our FRC coaching that we do. I've talked about it numerous times. Anyways, my favorite slide that he has on his presentation weekend that you attend when you go to take a course is this. One where it shows that the tissue has to be able to handle the load that comes up to it. Otherwise, you end up with an injury. So it's like if you gave me 1,000 pounds and said, bicep curl this, Kate, I would be like, well, I will try, but I will not be able to. And if I tried, I would get injured because my tissue doesn't have the capacity to handle the load with which I just put on it. And your feet are no different. Okay, so if you cannot articulate your foot and your ankle and your toes and all of the ways that they have the potential to, you put yourself at a risk. So the next thing you can start doing, in addition to the big toe and little toe lifts, is to actually start massaging your feet and seeing how much they articulate, and then going for a walk in your grass outside or wherever you can find some space of natural terrain, not necessarily concrete or hardwood floor or carpeting or anything like that. Doing that is going to help your brain also start to connect to these tissues again as well. Because like I've talked about in the end range control Facebook Live I did, so go back and rewatch that one. If you've not gone into a position, why would your brain remember how to actually access that? And so you have to reteach it, just like I would have to reteach myself some of the words in Spanish to be able to hold a coherent conversation that I could have done maybe many months ago, back when I was using it more frequently. Does that make sense? Okay, so you have 3 arches, not 1. You need to rebuild them all. This has a lot to do with intrinsic foot strength. I showed you 2 drills and then 1 action item you can start doing for that. Okay, next. How many of you have a big toe that points inward instead of straight forward? That will be a large percentage of people these days because the big toe unfortunately gets squished when it's inside a shoe and a sock. And also you don't get to use it very often when you're doing your training because, you know, I even see it at the gym I train at when I go to do strength work. They require that you be in closed toe shoes. And I get, you know, around that by wearing Vibram slippers that are like a sock basically. But even in a gym when you're training and you're trying to make your whole body better connected, they want you wearing shoes. And that is like putting duct tape around your foot and eliminating so much of the sensory perception that comes with what's happening in your foot as you train. If you look at kids' feet, you'll see it. Their big toe still points directly forward. But as they're in shoes for longer and longer, their big toe, it'll start pointing more and more inward. And adults, you probably have developed a bunion if you've had that for a long period of time. I will tell you this too. Bunions are also not genetic, just like the flat feet, okay? You can do things to reduce the pointing inward of the toe, but I'm less certain that you can actually eliminate a bunion once it's there, because that is actual tissue that your body has put in to say, hey, the big toe isn't pointing forward anymore. That's a really big deal. let's start building a new big toe, essentially. And so it starts laying down new hard tissue around that outer edge of like the ball joint, which is why bunion surgery is not a great idea, because your body was trying to put that there to do you some good. And then going in and shaving that off is literally undoing everything your body was trying to do. And remember, our bodies always have a reason for everything that they do. And it's your job to get in harmony with that and figure out how to connect to it, understand it, and then go forward with it, okay? So with bunions, I don't necessarily know, although tissue is constantly remodeling, maybe you can actually change the tissue quality there and like see it start to reduce after it's already developed. Hard to say, worth exploring though. But what you can do is actually start retraining the tissue around your big toe so that you can bring your big toe from being pointed too far inward towards the other toes closer to being pointed straight forward. Okay, you really can do it. And I'm going to show you how to at least start with that today. So here's your first drill. All right, so a question for you. How far back can you extend your big toe? You should be able to get pretty darn close to 90 degrees. 80 to 90 degrees is what we want, okay? Now that's passively, so we know that's great that I can do that passively. I can hit like a nice 90, almost 90 degree angle here, but like what can I do actively? So I'm gonna hold my foot here, and then I'm gonna try to pull that big toe back as far as I can. Not quite 80 to 90, right? Remember passively I went quite a bit farther. Let's try putting the big toe on the ground and see what happens. Okay, again, not quite 80 to 90. I'll take it, it's a great start, but my goal is gonna be to continue to improve my active control of shortening these tissues to all the way up to 90 degrees. I don't know if I'll ever be able to get there on my own, but that's where I'm gonna aim. Why not, right? And I want you to watch my arch of my foot. As I lift that up, can you see how the muscles flex harder and harder? I'm trying to pull my toenail back towards the top of my foot. And this is your next drill. See passively how far you can go and then work to like start improving that. If you feel pain here when you do that, stop and talk to a chiropractor or physio who knows how to work with feet and ankles. There may be some stuff in the joint capsule that needs to be cleared first. So first, checking passively, what do you got? And then starting to actively pull into it, what do you got? And then actually try to actively pull as hard as you possibly can. Trying to pull this farther and farther and farther. I'm squeezing as hard as I can. I have a really intense flexing feeling happening all through my foot. And then relax, okay? So that is a great first start for bringing the quality of the toe back into happiness and good function. And even if your toe is already pointing really far off to the side, just use your hand to kind of guide it into a more straight position as you do that drill and start to teach your body how to respond to that stimulus that you're giving it, okay? So bunions, flat feet, not a normal part of aging by any means, and also not something you are genetically predisposed to have. Also too, the big toe is so important that when somebody has to have their big toe amputated for any reason, it's actually a really big concern and a really big deal for how is this person going to balance. Because when you take away the big toe, you don't balance as well. And when you don't balance as well, remember that old phrase, well, it's not an old phrase, it's old in the fitness world. You can't fire a cannon from a canoe. So imagine a canoe now, and let's put a cannon in it, and then let's fire it. Like, what's going to happen to the canoe, right? It'll blow away. It'll be crazy. It won't work. That doesn't work. That's why you put cannons on, like, big giant ships. Well, I don't know if they still do. They don't. But in the old times, they did. So the cannon needs to be on a stable surface. So anyways, to generate power, you have to have a stable surface. If you aren't stable because you don't have a big toe functioning well, or God forbid you've actually had to have it removed, you're going to have a really hard time creating stability, which means you have a really hard time creating power. Does that make sense? In order to generate power from your lower body, whether it's in gait or jumping or anything where you're going to need to create some sort of control or movement from your lower body, you have to have your feet stable and in control with the ground so that your brain and your pelvis can talk to each other and go, yep, we're stable, generate a huge amount of power, okay? So big toe has to function really well, super critical to balancing. So the next time you're in yoga class or doing anything where you're balancing on one leg, notice what your big toe and your little toes are doing. My guess is, especially if you're an adult, your big toe is going to be lifting up in the air every other second or so because it literally doesn't know how to actually stay pressed into the ground and grounded with the rest of your body. So that's your first job. Start grounding the big toe back into the ground. Whether you're in shoes or not, just start to notice it. Then notice your little toes. Are they curling like this into the floor? They might be. And that's what we start to call those hammer toes when they stay stuck that way. If you're curling into the floor, you're again missing the musculature of the feet to really help you to their greatest capacity. What you want to have is everything into the ground this way and grounding downward, straight down into the floor, so that the whole toe can make contact with the floor as well as the thumb. So start noticing that. Next time you're in yoga or you're doing anything on one leg, what are your toes doing? And if you notice little kids, they have an innate ability to ground the big toe into the ground. But we lose that as we stop practicing it. We have to wear shoes and we start losing the connection to our feet that we had when we were little running around barefoot. The good news is you can restore that over time, but it does take time. Now you might be thinking, well, how fast can I start seeing changes in my feet? Here's the reality. When I was changing my foot, so I had a collapsed right arch. It wasn't fully collapsed, but it was flat compared to the other one. It took a year to actually grow pretty rad looking arch. So get in it for the long game is what I guess I have to say here. And really, like I said about this on Facebook last week, where are you going that you would want your results now and it will be a terrible thing if you don't get them now? You have a lifetime to do this. Whatever your lifetime is, you have that to get this done. It's not the end of the world if it only changes a micromillimeter in a month. That's an improvement. That's a change. That's progress forward. And you getting frustrated about that only impedes your progress. So plan for the long game. I actually had a girl, same thing, high arches. We started bringing her rest of her foot back into function so she could actually function well with the high arches. A year. It was a year. But really, she went from, okay, I can't really do endurance stuff because it hurts, to Ironman triathlon a year later. Cool, great, let's get on the journey and let's go on it together, right? So plan on taking some time here. Okay, so ankles. I also want to talk about ankles as we're going through the foot and the ankle, and know that feet could be a whole day presentation. So I'm giving you the most important things that I want you to start with, and then we can expand and go further from there. Ankles. All right. So I posted on Instagram recently where I was doing a really low Cossack squat and actually had loaded my entire foot to the floor with my shin in a really weird position. I'm going to show you what it looked like. So back up here. All right. So I was in a Cossack squat, which is a low squat down here. And this is essentially where I was starting. Whole foot flat on the floor from an original starting position here, and actually able to load that and then start loading the tissue as I went into a lunge. Take a look at this position of the foot. Okay, so if my shin's all the way out here, if we were to take this and put it on its side, what does that look like to you? Yeah, when you roll your ankle. How many of you have rolled your ankle? Yeah, everybody, right? Oh my gosh, everybody does at some point or another, because the tissue wasn't ready to handle the load of being slightly unstacked and then having to rebound and revive from that rolling of the ankle, whether it was when you tripped in soccer or stepped in a hole or stepped wrong off the curb or whatever. The reality is ankle rolls are going to happen. You can't eliminate that from your life, but you can be better prepared. So I want to tell you a quick story about the last time I had an ankle injury and why now I can do that position with no problem. It's not even a concern in any way to roll my ankle that far over into such a significant angle. So I was doing gymnastics 2 years ago now and had a landing pad under the beam. And I never trained with these under the beam because I hate them, because they're great for landing if you're doing flips. But when you're landing off the beam, and my landing was feet first, they squish 8 inches when you land on them. And I have to land just in the right spot. Otherwise I land right on the edge of the mat. Well, I was lazy and being dumb that day and I deserve it. I was doing, the mat was under there and I didn't move it. And I went through my whole thing, went to do my dismount, dismounted, landed right on the edge. And my right ankle went whoop, and I heard a pop and the whole thing rolled off to the side. And I was instantly on my knees and gasping for breath just at the intense fear and pain of what had just happened. And also kicking myself for not moving the stupid mat. So lesson learned, if you know, I should do this and you go to ignore it, that is going to bite you in the butt later on at some point. So anyways, this was an instant big high ankle sprain, maybe more, because I heard the pop. I wasn't really sure. Thankfully, I had a friend or a client at that time, friend and client, who sold medical. And we're going to reconnect because the wireless connection says it was bad. I don't know, storms. I'm sorry, guys. This is the internet. It's life, whatever. Anyways, she had a boot that you could pump up the inflation on to provide compression to the leg inside the boot. So she brought that over. I immediately, as soon as I got home, put my foot into compression and elevation, and then started contrast therapy between hot and cold over the next several days, keeping my foot in compression, and as soon as I could, started moving it through its entire range again to start undoing any neurotags my brain had created for, oh, don't go in that position because that's a painful position, which it had already. In doing that though, by 7 days, I was 100% normal. My foot felt great again, and I was able to go back to gymnastics and actually start light movement through some of the ranges and landings that I knew were going to be maybe tricky if I had had kind of a classic ankle sprain years past. And everybody went, how did you heal so fast? And I was like, well, I mean, you know, you got to figure out what the body needs and then give it to it. But a big part of that too was teaching my body how to handle the inflammation and the issues of the actual injury, but also having a really good foundation leading up to that of handling the foot in a variety of positions. So I already had the ability to access like pronation and eversion and inversion and supination and all of the different foot positions that the ankle can take the foot through. So you doing that work now really is shoring you up so that you can be more resistant to an injury and a random thing that happens down the line, because it's gonna happen, okay? So start doing the work now so that you can tap into your range of motion, then you can start expanding and controlling that range of motion, and then you can start building strength into it. Like I said in that Instagram video, you do not start there. If you have never done this, you start with actually doing an entire foot circle. This is your foot, but it looks like a hand puppet, I know. Doing an entire foot circle and actually showing that you can make the full circle. Because here's how most people will do. This is the foot. When they go to make a circle with their ankle, they'll go circle, circle, circle. We're gonna skip that part. Make the circle here, circle, circle. We'll skip that part. And it's like your brain has just kind of forgotten how to map this part out. So actually doing an entire foot circle as slow as you possibly can and making an entire circle to start reconnecting your body to the expansion and control of the range of motion. Make sense? Okay, cool. All right, plantar fascia pain. That's the last thing I want to say. Then we're going to get to questions because I know we had a talk about questions and answers we want to do today, and then we still have a joke. Duh. Okay. Plantar fascia acts like a tie rod. It connects the calcaneus, or the heel, to the toes and helps the whole thing stay connected together. However, its job is not to do all of the work for your foot. But could you see how if your intrinsic muscles of your feet, your arches, your extrinsic muscles of your feet, if they're not functioning well, who's left? The connective tissue, which is what plantar fascia is. So your connective tissue then goes, well, I mean, all right, we'll take this load on for you and we'll handle more of the gait and landing mechanics and push-off mechanics that, you know, everybody else is supposed to be doing, but they're freeloaders and they're not. We'll do it, fine, no problem. But tissue can only take itself so far before it goes, hey, this doesn't feel so good anymore. You're using me a lot and I don't like it. And that is where a lot of the overuse injuries and inflammatory injuries with the plantar fascia can develop. So if you're developing plantar fasciitis, there's a reason for it, and you need to start addressing the muscles and bones in your foot and your ankle to function better so that your plantar fascia isn't like relegated to doing all of the work of your foot. And of course, rolling your foot on a lacrosse ball, great starting point. But like we've talked about in previous Facebook Lives, self-massage is only a first start, right? Like that's great that you've changed the pliability of your tissue in some way, but then what next? Your nervous system has to know how to control the new expanded range of motion of like your bones in your, like the joints of the big toe and all the little toes, and the ankle range of motion and pronation and eversion and supination and eversion. Those all have to know how to function as well. And then you have to build strength into it. So teaching your foot how to actually, like I was showing earlier, get into a really significant range and then actually be able to load the tissue without injury. So the plantar fascia really just takes the brunt of whatever isn't already working in your foot. So while it is great to massage that area, make sure you're spending the time on the actual root cause of the issue, which is likely either the joints not moving well, like big toe and the other toe joints, or your tissue not working well, or probably both, because they are always interconnected and in harmony with each other. Okay, good. All right, so we've covered what I want to cover. I see there's some questions here today, so we're going to get into those. Okay. Flat feet, we covered that. Have issues sleeping after sleeping legs and feet. Like Dan is saying, I think that his feet hurt when he first wakes up. So feet hurting when you first wake up is common but not normal. So get in the habit of teaching your soft tissue how to have better pliability. This goes for any part of your body, so that when you wake up, you have less stiffness and soreness, and hopefully at someday, none. Now, even when I wake up, the first thing I do is go through my daily movement series. Readers of the Movement Manifesto, you have a video taking you through that. And then I'll throw in some like pliability work just for the fun of it, because when I'm first waking up, it feels fun to just lay on my roller or step on my lacrosse ball or whatever. It's a good, like, I'm not awake yet thing to do. But doing daily movement is the first thing you want to start with anyways. So if you are feeling stiff, great. Use that as a cue to get yourself going on the right foot in your day. That was great. I didn't even plan that. Oh, Sandoval, I hope you heal well from a plantar fascia tear. That's a bummer. It's going to take some time. But do know this, most injuries, the old way, they talked about immobilizing and not using it for a period of time. The new way we're talking about is actually trying to get in and moving as soon as you can in a safe range. I do recommend getting with a professional for that, whether it's a physiotherapist or if you've already been cleared from physio, working with a coach, someone like myself or someone in your area who knows how to help you restore the function and control of the tissue. But we have seen tissue tears heal with movement being a part of the program. So that is an option for you. Okay. Mandy, I'm so sorry. Let's talk about orthotics. Yeah, they mean well, right? Like, if you've already had bunion surgery, Mandy had bunion surgery. I think my mom did too. I'm trying to remember back. It was a common thing because we didn't know different, and that was the option that you had. And I'm sure in 20 years, we'll look at things we're doing right now and go, oh, wow, can't believe we used to do that. How crazy. Orthotics, though, I do want to say this. You do not have to wear orthotics if you do not want to, but it is your job to take good care of your feet, because if you don't, orthotics are the thing that's going to help put your foot in a better position. But your foot could be in a better position on its own. It really could. And I've had disagreements with podiatrists about this, but I'm telling you, like, in the short term, there may be a space to get you out of the crucial, really bad situation you're in with your feet. Long term, I'm telling you, you don't need them. Why would you cast your foot for the rest of your life and make your foot not able to function through its entire range? It's just ludicrous to me, but that's another topic for another time. Hi, Emily. It's good to see you. Hi. I did... Funny, true story. I'm teaching at Camp Nerd Fitness again this fall. I don't know if tickets are left, but if they are, I highly recommend you come because it is a 4-day adult summer camp. It's an amazing time. Last year, I was supposed to give a lecture on injury prevention. It turned into an hour-long talk on feet because people had a question and we were just kind of going off onto all of the things about feet. So there really is more you could say. I will happily talk about more if you want sometime. And also, please come to Camp Nerd Fitness. It's really fun. You're welcome, Naima. Thank you so much. Okay, that's good. Why are we seeing these again? Morton's Neuroma. Man, that is a tough one, Paula. Okay, so Morton's Neuroma, that is like kind of like a ganglion cyst, and that like it's really weird that it shows up. Like, we're still learning more about trying to understand why these like cyst things with your nerves show up and what causes them and how we make them go away. And it's very new, and very much like when I get clients like that, we're trying things to see how their body responds, because there seems to not be one way that works for everybody. Isn't that funny? It's kind of like the path to enlightenment. No one way for everybody. So we're trying things to see what works. Morton's Neuroma, they do hurt. So I will say, like, if you need some extra cushioning, especially in the acute phase of that, get the cushioned shoes, get an insole to help you if that's going to help you out to just function normally. But do try to spend some time sending better signals to your body, being barefoot on maybe a very soft surface to start, and then just lightly playing with movement of the feet and self-massage. That's what I would say about that for now, not knowing any more about your story. When you do have to wear shoes, which kind do you most prefer? Full disclosure, I go shoeless whenever I possibly can. I am that hippie. I live in Utah. I'm allowed to be a hippie out here, okay? And I hope you are, in whatever your town in too. I regularly go to gatherings without shoes. It's just what I go with, whatever. But you do have to wear shoes when you go to restaurants and various places like that for whatever reason. Vibram toe shoes are my go-to for like a casual shoe. I buy the slippers because they literally are like a slipper and your toes can articulate. And I buy the cute little pretty ones that have like, they're white with like a stripe on them. I don't know what they're called, but I bought like 6 pairs forever ago and I still have them because I love them. When I have to wear shoes, let me pull this bad boy open actually. I'm next to my closet, okay? A shoe like this. I don't love this. Want to know why? it doesn't move. So when I wear these, I hate it. My feet hurt, but like, they're all right looking, you know, they're pretty, they're fine. But anyways, the point is they have an ankle strap. That is crucial because homies who are all wearing flip-flops, you're doing yourself no favors. Your toes are grabbing this to try to grab the ground. It's not helping you build the intrinsic strength of your feet. Your shoe, though, see where the crease is? That, like, my toes want to bend more than this, and they can't in the shoe. So when I walk, it's this weird, like, thing happening like this. I haven't just gotten a different pair yet. I do know, who is it? Unshoes? Maybe Unshoes. Also Vivo. They have soft bottom shoes that I love, that are super fun and super cute and stylish and whatever. But those of you who are used to like legitimate stylish, just get over it. They don't look like that. They look like minimalist shoes that are more stylish, but like, I don't care because I want my feet to feel amazing and it doesn't feel great to have feet that hurt. So that is my answer on those. Dealing with scar tissue, Michelle, related to plantar fascia. Yes. Okay. Scar tissue. Quick little sidebar on scar tissue. You totally can change what's happening with your scar tissue. Getting in and working with, I would recommend an FR practitioner. Go to the Functional Range Conditioning website and search for a provider in your area who does FR, because FR is the functional range guys are like me, but also capable of touching you. I'm not supposed to touch you when I coach you. I'm supposed to be hands off. That's what all trainers are supposed to be. So an FR practitioner, we get together with those guys and we go, hey, John has some scar tissue things, we think. Could you check it out? And they can get in there and actually manually palpate everything and provide treatment that actually can help your scar tissue start to reform into more healthy tissue. One of the interesting theories that I've heard about scar tissue is this, that scar tissue is, you know, cells are always regenerating, that it's a space in your body, wherever it's at, let's say the bottom of the foot, where the fibroblasts, which are, you know, tissues, the cells in the tissue, they're not getting great signaling of how they should regenerate. So instead of regenerating in like this nice, let's say, uniform pattern, they start to regenerate because they haven't had signaling. They start to regenerate in like this weird kind of like gnarled up like position because they don't have anything say, hey, when you here, I want you to be like this. And here, I want you to be like this. They don't have that. And so they start to get this weird, funky position to them as they're regenerating, and scar tissue is born. I think that's pretty interesting and fascinating because it lends itself to like, hey, just provide a better stimulus, you'll get a better response. Movements, soft tissue work, having somebody actually get in who knows what they're doing with manual therapy, not just like saying, yeah, I'm breaking up scar tissue. You're not. We already talked about that. Doing that would be a really great first step. And if you can't get with an FR practitioner in your area, like I said in Facebook Live the other week, interview massage therapists who might be capable of being able to help you out, and find one who actually knows a whole bunch about anatomy and about how to make your body work better. Okay, Luis, you're welcome. Thank you. Guys, we have one more thing to do today. Are you ready? You ready? So I just want to have a talk with you. I really love that you guys have, this will make sense in a second. I really love that you guys have been sending in jokes, but we don't have any about vegetables. So if you have any, let us know. I can't even, because you probably all will never come back again. I blame the internet for that one, for teaching me that. But anyways, hey guys, this has been Facebook Live today. Me and the lettuce say bye. Have a great afternoon. Let me know more questions about your feet. We'll talk more in the future about them. Have a great day. Take it easy.